here with Half Dozen Customs. We're back out on the Jeep today, and we are going to start piecing together the new floor pans out of some construction board paper. I do have these pieces connect to the rocker. This would be the back of the door, this would be the front of the door. This here goes along the side of the seat, and then this starts to wrap around into where your feet would go, brake pedals, gas pedal. And these were really the only good pieces that I'm able to use as a template to make new pieces. So my goal is to make like the driver's side all out of one piece, the passenger side all out of one piece, and then we'll do the transmission tunnel, and it will get spot welded together along the transmission tunnel, making it all one piece. So that is my goal. We're going to start with the driver's side, then jump over to the passenger side. And we're going to hold off on getting the transmission tunnel done. I am waiting. We ordered a low-cart shifter. I think it's 22 inch or 23 inch low-cart shifter. So I'm waiting for that to show up. I don't know, if that would have fit under the stock floor or not. We may have to come up with our trans tunnel a little bit more, or if I am to copy what the stock floor was, I don't know if we would have to build like a little center console almost to cover the inner workings of the shifter. I just don't know. For all I know, it could have stayed hidden underneath the stock floor. But until it gets here and we get it mounted in, I just don't know. So my goal is, like I said, do the driver's side, do the passenger side, just get them, roughed out with some construction board paper that we can then transfer over to metal. And then we gotta get the motor and the trans back in. One for me to test out the low-cart shifter when it gets here. And we also need to run all the new electrical for this motor. So, we pulled the old 350 out. I don't know if I've said this yet in a video. And, if anybody hasn't caught it yet, we are putting an LS motor in here. So, LS the world. So, yeah, all new wiring harness, everything. It's got a wiring harness like this that goes through the firewall now, instead of, the old 350 that had, a wiring harness, like Yay Big that went through. So, we got to figure out where all that goes and how everything's going to hook up inside. I need to get the computer mounted. The body control module stuff, whatever, all the stuff that goes with it. We did buy like an elimination kit for it, where it only puts in the necessities. It's a stripped down wiring harness that we ordered for it. So it's just strictly the motor and the transmission. So we still need to wire up all the gauges, the lights, blinkers, heater, all that stuff. So that stuff we'll have to wire up ourselves. But as far as the motor goes, it is just basically motor and trans. It's a stripped down unit. So yeah, so we're going to be putting in the motor for those two reasons. But until then, I could put the motor in right now, I guess, but I think I'm gonna tinker with this and see if we can get this done. So I guess enough talking at the moment. Get some tape, we'll tape this together. So, and I doubt it, but maybe if we're lucky, if we do a good job making this driver's side one, we can just flip it over and it fits in the passenger side. I highly doubt it, but we will see. I know for one, once we get the driver's side one made and I get it templated out onto onto the metal. We did not cut as much out on the passenger side as the driver's side. So if this template was to even work for the passenger side, we would have to trim a bunch off of it. So we will not be able to test it until this is transferred over to metal. I may just make passenger side one separate. Make one for the driver, one for the passenger. It's probably the smarter thing to do. At least we have some kind of start. Something to start off of. If we didn't have this piece, we would just be piecing it all together, which we are going to have to piece together this front section because that just came out in pieces. So I'm gonna pop this piece back in the vehicle. This looks like it's running on an angle, so I want to see, if I was to connect this line right here and we cut all this out, am I going to be lining up, or it is somewhat going on an angle. I think if we kind of square this off this paper now, so we should be able to cut that, and we should be good. This up here. Does look like it. Which way does that go? So it'll get tighter as it goes to the front. Say like that. We're going to cut that out and see how we fit. I'm going to have to add some more here. Probably use some of this that we cut out. And I think we're going to have to add some more up here. So, but this will allow us, hopefully, this will allow us, it should. This construction board paper, this is stuff that I got from Colleen. It's actually watercolor paper. It's pretty thick. But I'm hoping, like, up in the toe boards where we, you know, where we curve around up by where your feet sit, you know, we should be able to fold it up, and because it curves up this way and it curves this way, it curves up this way, like there's compound curves in the corners up here, and we should be able to fold up. That's what I was saying, like it is a little thick, but hopefully we should be able to fold it up, you know, put a piece of tape over it, get our curve and our corners how we want out of this. Then when I transfer it down to the metal, we can untape that, lay it flat, and our creases that are in the paper, we can then mark onto the metal, and that's where we need to tuck and shrink the metal to get the metal to do what the paper did. So at least that's the idea. I don't, if you guys haven't noticed from watching my other videos, I don't do a whole lot of work with template paper like this. You know, a lot of the stuff that I do, like I cut out the old metal that might have a rust hole in it, but I'm able to use that metal that I cut out as the template. This one, it was all gone, and somebody else had done their work to it, and it wasn't very good, and we weren't able to use it or save it as templates because it was all multiple pieces riveted together and whatnot. So this is what we got to do. Probably gonna have to go back and cut this again and get rid of our black line. But I'm gonna try this first and see how we do. You know, I do need to, you know, when we transfer this over to metal, I do need to leave a little bit because, you know, we got some tucking and shrinking to do. We got some bends to put in. With this, oh yeah, I put it back in the car. This piece that we just traced out has a bend in it that goes down to the rocker. There is some bead rolls that need to be put in it. The stock floor had some X's put in with bead rolls for strength. There's one up at the front. The passenger side we were able to save. Driver's side I cut right through the middle of it, so we need to mark it and add the bottom part of the X. So when we weld it back in, we have our full X. And then there's supposed to be like an X right in here somewhere. This would be like right underneath like your knees at the front of the seat. The front of the seat comes down right here. There would be an X here for some strength purposes. Originally I had planned and thought that we were gonna try and do some bead rolling in here to make it match the steps that we did. Make it match, you know, the body lines that are in the doors and whatnot. There is nowhere else on the vehicle where there's these X's like this. So, you know, to me, like, I try and keep everything uniform and clean looking. But then on the other hand, you know, it is factory. If we just put the X's back in there, it'll look like we never touched it. So, and I think it's a little easier to just put the X's in. So I think we're gonna stick with that, and we'll see how we do. See, if you look over there, there's an X in the floor. If you look right here, you can see the top part of the X right there. So, you know, we need to finish it. It goes down into the floor. And then there's supposed to be an X right here. So that is what we're going to be trying to mimic or copy. So this is that piece that we just used as a template. We need to take a little off there. That looks pretty good. We need to take a little off there. We need to add some there. So you can see kind of where we're headed with this. I said that we may have to come back and take off our black line, which is looking like what we're going to be doing. So this little curve up that we have here probably won't stay. Right where it curves all the way through here, we will end up probably cutting with, when we put it on the metal, it'll probably get cut straight across. Now this is kind of why I'm templating this out first, so that we can kind of figure out what's going on. But this part that's flipping up like this right now, my idea is that this will actually be part of the trans tunnel. It's kind of like that, the way that they had it before, the way that they did their patch setup or whatnot. So, but my trans tunnel, trans tunnel comes up here, and then it'll come down, and then we're gonna have like a little, probably 3/4 of an inch little lip that comes flat. And then the trans tunnel will go in first, and then this piece will go in, and it'll sit along that lip of the spot, or the trans tunnel. Just like you can see that there's a lip here, and the old floor was spot welded all the way, around this. So we're pretty much just gonna run this lip down and over up to the front, and then the new piece will sit on it, and we'll spot weld all the way along there. It'll get seam sealed. It'll look good. At least that's my plan that I've been thinking about this whole time. But we haven't, you know, this is our, you know, first little mock-up of what we got going on. So we will, you know, we'll see how things lay. You know, even if we do the bend up here and we cut it down to, you know, 3/4 of an inch bend up, and then we drop the trans tunnel over the top, and then we spot weld along the side, it's the same idea, same concept, and I'm sure it'll work. But I don't think I have it reversed. The way that I explained it the first time is the way that I have it planned in my head. So that's what we're gonna run with. You know, things always change. If you guys work on cars, you know, things change. So I think we got that pretty well. Now we need to make a piece for up there. That piece, I don't know how well we're gonna be able to get all of this out of construction board paper. You know, it's nice and flat going across. We have the X we gotta add, but this rolls up into that, and then there's a bump over and then a bump up into the trans tunnel. So somehow, some way, we need to get that added into the metal. I'm talking this, like these two bump ups right here. Like there was one bump up that that's where the original gas pedal sat and mounted. You can see the holes there. The two holes were for where the pedal mounted, and then the big hole was where the cable went through. So that was where the old pedal was. You know, does that need to be there anymore? No, it doesn't, but I didn't want to replace half the firewall either. So, you know, we're just gonna incorporate those two bumps. You know, I think this bump here, I think, you know, we're gonna come down this way with it, and it'll kind of meet up with this bend up here. It'll go from a protruding hump to an indent. Like, we'll have to kind of make it disappear. So I think, you know, we'll come down from here and it'll disappear as it goes into the bottom there, out of the metal, I'm saying. So let me get another piece of construction board paper cut, because our two little pieces here aren't going to cut it. You know, he's close, but there's he's just not gonna cut it. So I'm just gonna cut another piece and we'll bring it over here. So be right back. All right, so we're back. I should grab my marker and scissors just in case. I took a quick measurement and cut a strip that we can start taping in here. So it looks like bend in the metal like so. So I think I'm gonna do this piece in a couple different pieces here. I think I'm gonna mark this like right here, and we'll cut that. and then we'll do the little bumps and jogs over in a separate piece, multiple pieces maybe. So I'm hoping when we do this out of metal, like, we won't have hard creases here. It'll be some nice rolls. But I guess if you look over there, it's not really, I don't know if you guys can see that over there, but it's not really a roll, it's more like a crease. So so now, how are we gonna make that corner? Sorry, I say so much. While I left to go cut this piece, I guess the wife was standing outside. She heard that I was getting ready to shut the camera down, and she heard me saying so much. She came in here and was making fun of me. Don't really like how we had to do this up here. That's where I think the thinner construction board paper works out better, because we would have been able to do it in one piece and just fold everything, because that's going to be hard to lay out and lay flat onto a piece of metal. What I'm going to have to do there is, we'll lay this onto the piece of metal. We will, we may have to make a couple of cuts in it so that it lays flat onto the metal, and then I'm going to have to overcompensate with the metal when we trim it out, leave extra, just in case. So this is a tough, this is a tough little corner here that we're gonna have to make. Now, if you guys have seen my Monte Carlo videos, if you haven't, you can go back and take a look at the floor that I redid on the Monte Carlo. We had some areas like this in the Monte Carlo that we had to make. And we were able to make it with some tucking and some shrinking and the plenishing hammer and the English wheel, and we were able to make that piece out of one piece. So even though it took me a couple pieces to tape together and get it together, like I said, we'll probably come in, we'll make a couple of cuts in this so that when we transfer it to the metal, we can lay it flat onto the metal, because that is the main thing, that we be able to lay it flat. and then we know kind of like where we make our cuts to be able to lay it flat is where the majority of the shrinking and stretching is going to happen. So shrinking, stretching, plenishing, yeah, so we'll get her, we'll make her look good, but for now I think that this side is as good as we're gonna get it as far as template goes. I think the next thing, I think we'll jump over and we'll do the passenger side. So we do have, so one of the hard things that we are gonna have to do So I think that's about where we'll put that X. Go out a little farther. We can go out much farther there. So, and this one continues through there. This one continues through here. So any bead rolling that we have to do, we have to do it while the panel is still flat, because I don't have a large mouth bead roller. If anybody has ever looked into those, they are thousands of dollars for a large mouth bead roller. I just don't have that kind of money, so what we'll have to do is, while the panel is flat, we're going to have to put this X in on both sides. And then I want to, what we're going to do is, before I take this out, we're going to go underneath and we're going to mark on our construction board paper this lip that goes all the way around. And I'm actually going to we're going to bead roll a step into that, so that the floor pan actually kind of sits down into that. So when I go underneath to seam seal it, I'm not trying to seam seal this huge step. If we put the step in this first, before we put any of our bends in and whatnot, then it'll kind of sit a little flusher mounted in there. At least that's the idea. That's my plan, my plan of attack. So yeah, so we got to do all that bead rolling before we start putting our bends and our tucks and our shrinks into everything. So that corner is going to be tricky, but we'll get her done. The rest of it I'm not too worried about. You know, this bend up is pretty simple. That bend up there is pretty simple. There's a slight bend that goes here that's pretty simple. I think the bead rolls are going to be fairly simple. It's just going to be that corner, which is going to be the tricky situation. But I think we'll get it handled. The only other thing that kind of worries me about doing this corner, if you watch the Monte Carlo video that I did, where all my tucking and shrinking was done, it was in a small area like this. That's a large area that we need to do some tucking and shrinking. It's almost like, it's so much material, like it would be nice to have a thumbnail shrinker, but we don't have one of those. I may end up having to make, if you guys watched in a couple of my other videos, or one of my other videos, I believe it was a Monte Carlo video, I made a tucking fork. think it was a Monte Carlo video. I made a tucking fork. Anyways, it's right here. So I made this. But this, you know, it only has like a 2 1/4 or 2 1/2 inch throat there. So what I may end up having to do is make another one and make it longer, so that we can get in farther on that to make the tucks. Now the only problem with making these longer like that is that you lose all the strength, and these will want to bend. These bend already when I use it, but you go one way and then you go back the other way, and they're always straightening themselves out every time you do that. But the longer we get, the worse it's gonna be. So you know, I don't know what we can do to maybe strengthen it up. Maybe I'll take, once we get it made longer, I'll take another set of rods, we'll put it on the outside, and we'll weld those solid, and maybe it'll add enough strength that we're able to get some long tucks in there. So but we'll see. I'll just end up making the other side off camera. I'm gonna do the exact same thing I did here. I'm not gonna make you guys watch it twice. So when it comes time to, like I said, I'm not gonna do the center hump until we get the shifter here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get the passenger side templated out like I did here, and then I'm gonna get the motor and trans put back in. I'm probably not gonna film that either, because you guys have seen me pull the motor out of this thing. Same thing, just reversed. Maybe I'll film it, I don't know. And then once that shifter's here, we'll make that trans tunnel piece. So we do have, like, I gotta weld up those holes where the old gas pedal went. We got to make a patch for that center piece. If you guys remember, there was a bunch of holes in that center piece, so instead of going through and doing what we needed to do to shave it all, I just cut it out. We're going to make a new piece, so I'll probably get that piece in there. We need to weld up that piece over there, so we'll get that piece done. It'll all be easier to do when the floor is out. So that'll probably be in one of the upcoming videos. We may actually do that before we put the motor in, so that may be the next video that you guys get to see, is me you know, doing that section up there and getting that buttoned up. So I know I ended the video last night with getting the driver's side poster board template done for the floor. I told you guys I wasn't going to video doing the rest of it because you guys watched me do the driver's side, and you know, I did the exact same thing on the other side. So so I came out here this morning and I worked on that and I got that done. So pretty much everything is templated out. You know, we even got the trans tunnel templated out. Now I don't know till we get the gear shifter in. Colleen said that she thought it was coming in today, but I'm not positive. Until we get the gear shifter in, I don't know if that would be where the stock floor would have sat. So that's what the stock floor looked like. So we just recreated it without all the holes in it. So that's where the stock floor would sit. So I remade that for now. Now, if the new drive shaft calls for, you know, lifting it up some, you know, all we got to do is just lift this up where we need it and then cut you know, a couple pieces of poster board as filler boards and tape them in there up where we need it. So, and I remember I was saying like last night on the other side, like, oh, these corners are gonna be a pain in the butt to make, and I'm probably gonna have to make a new tucking fork tool, and we're gonna have to make it longer and brace it and do this and do that. I wasn't even thinking, and I said it in the video, you know, probably 20 minutes prior, that this piece will not get bent up that way. It's going to be cut straight across here. This part of this here is going to be part of this. So when we're ready to make this, like if this is the piece we're going to be using, I'll tape it along here and we're going to cut it along here, and then this whole thing will be a separate piece. So this corner up here that we have to make, it won't have this side piece here, so there's not really going to be a whole lot of tucking up there. And you know, I was worried about this big long area that needed to be tucked. You know, it's really just going to be this area here that's going to need to be tucked. So, and what's going to happen is we're going to, you know, this will all be a flat piece, and then I'll end up rolling this up, and that roll will come over to here, and it's going to end right here. So, you know, there might be a weld in there, but I won't have a whole lot of tucking to do. I mean, there will be some, because I do want this corner rounded. So there might be a little tucking and a little plenishing hammer action there. But the whole thing that like I was visualizing last night for some odd reason, just seeing it because it was in a template, you know, I got worried and I kind of, you know, I don't know, I scared myself thinking that we had to do all this crazy tucking and shrinking and forming around there, and we don't. So, but I think it looks pretty good. Now next I think we're going to move up into this up here. That I'll film. We're going to make some stuff to weld all that stuff up and get it cleaned up, so that way it's all done and it's part of the firewall. It's separate from doing this stuff, so we'll get that done next. And then once we get that all welded up and ground down, we'll put the motor back in. So all right, that's my little update. I'm out. I'll see you guys for some patch making and some welding in a little bit. I'll be back. Alright, so we're back out here. We're gonna start getting some of the stuff cleaned up so that we can start doing some patchwork here. So yeah, let's get to it. Let's do it to it. Let's get in here and hopefully not bang my knee or elbow or anything on something. Right. Ow, I just banged my elbow. Alright, so this back corner over here, I was having a hard time getting in there. So, grab some smaller stuff, see what we can do. Oh, I didn't grab no scissors to cut me some new ones. Alright, hopefully we're good enough. There's still some strength in there. I don't know if you guys noticed while I was grinding that lip off, like some of it went badoink. It would have been nice to keep that in there for strength while I was welding it, but because it was like a stamped piece, there was like a curve to it that I had to grind that curve away, and I was worried that if I welded the patch in first and then ground it down, that I would be grinding down what the patch was actually welded to, and then we'd end up with a patch that was no longer welded in. So I chose to get rid of that lip first, and now we'll weld the patch in. And I should have grabbed that while I was out, because I have the piece of metal over there that's already traced on, but I think now I may have to retrace it now that we got that ground down, because I traced it with that lip on there. But I think I got most of it cleaned up. I think we may take these, like I said, I want to take one out, we're going to drill a hole through it, we're going to put a nut and bolt. Take one out, drill a hole through it, put a nut and bolt. We're going to go all the way around and do them all so that it looks nicer and cleaner. So I think we'll do that right now. Because I'm going to be working and grinding and welding down around here, and having those sharp screws gone would be nice. I don't know if the shifter showed up today or not. I would think if it did, it would be here, or I at least would have got a text message saying that it's here. It was getting shipped to the owner's house. But I did get the actuator in today. Look how cute he is. So this is the actuator that we're gonna put in here to lift that guy up. So we have him. It is a 12 volt setup. I believe this was, I have to go back and look, but I believe it was 4.5 pound lift capacity. There's no way that little thing weighs that much. So I could be wrong, but I think that'll work. So we'll have to see. So let's get set up to pull those screws out real quick. All right. I absolutely hate these style of chucks. I wish they made drills with the old key style. I have another Black & Decker drill that's actually a plug-in drill, and it's a hammer drill, and the other day I was using it to drill some holes in some cement to put some anchors in, and the trigger, something happened to the trigger and it just went full speed while I had my hand wrapped around this to try and take the drill bit out, and it just spun this thing full speed in my hand. I have blisters all the way around my fingers from, because I was gripped onto it as hard as I could to take the drill bit out, and it just kicked full speed. It's a plug-in style, so yeah, it was just, there was no stopping it, and it just spun it in my fingers, and I was in excruciating burning pain. Whatever that thing is, it's plastic or rubber or something. I could probably do these all at once, but I mean, it is glued in place. Drill bit caught and sucked the drill into the hole and smashed my finger between the drill and the brake pedal. Oh, that didn't feel good. I got hurt twice doing this. I don't like hurting myself. Alright, so we got that done. To me that looks way better than just some sheet metal screws sticking out. We're gonna do something else with that. Shut this light off so I'm not blinded. To me that looks way better. I want to get some castle nuts, or no, they're not castle nuts. They're I don't know. They have the little chrome dome over them. I don't know what the heck they're called at the moment. That we could put over, you know, put on that it'll cover the threads that are sticking out, and it'll give you a nice little chrome domed cap over the top of it. So we're gonna do that, and it's possible that I may flip those around so that they're inside, and then it'll all get, you know, it'll get painted on the outside. Then when you look under the hood, all you'll see is the head of the bolt, and it'll be painted blue to match the truck. And then on the inside, we'll put those little crown nuts on there. And the inside's getting bed lined, so they'll get all bed lined with that, and they'll be less noticeable Or maybe we'll leave them chrome. I don't know. I'm much happier with that, but I just don't think it's right quite yet. So we'll get it figured out. I wish I had some of those bolts here. I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about. I have so many nuts and bolts here, and that's one thing that I don't have. So, but anyways, we'll figure that out later on down the road. I think that's more like a finishing touch before or after it gets painted. But I'm much happier with that now. We got that stuff cleaned up and ready to start making patches. So tomorrow we'll pick up with that. I'm gonna call it a night right here because I've hurt myself several times working on this truck, and I'm not about hurting myself. When I start doing that, it's just time to walk away and come back at it again tomorrow because you know, I don't want to hurt myself. And when I'm doing it over and over and over again, then I'm in the wrong zone. So we'll have to come back tomorrow and pick up where we left off, and we'll go from there, and hopefully I don't hurt myself. So this is that patch that we ground down over there. I told you I had already marked it out. But I marked it out before we ground it down, so I don't know if it changed. I'll have to get down in there and hold it up there and see if it changed any. You know, it may be one of those things now where instead of cutting on the inside of my line, we just cut on the outside of the line and we're fine. So, so we'll do that tomorrow. I already have the last couple of patches that are on this side that we need to do. I'm gonna do them from inside because it's easier to get to them. I already have those made, so we're ready to go there. And we gotta make this center piece here that goes there, which I have the piece that we cut out somewhere around here. It's over there in that pile somewhere. And I'm just going to use that piece that we cut out as a template to mark out onto the new metal. And once we get it marked out, we'll cut that out and we'll start welding it up. So hopefully tomorrow the last little bit on this firewall will be welded up. And we will be ready to start on with the next thing. If we get all that welded up and ground down and it's done and it's looking good, depending on if the shifter is here, we'll go from there. I kind of wanna get this thing mocked up with the electrical. We can run it off a jump pack just to make sure everything works. I would kind of like to get it working and see that it works. If there's something else that I gotta order or whatnot, you know, if I gotta order maybe a stronger one or whatnot. I picked it. I mean, I told you it's a cheap one, but like they had ones that were all plastic, and this one's actually metal. So I think it's, you know, it's a little decent made. It actually had a couple of reviews on it, not many, but a couple, where some of the other ones I was looking at didn't have any reviews. So I have faith in it, but we won't know until it works. And I would like to, you know, it's easier to sit on the floor and make all that stuff and get everything kind of working in there without the motor and trans and all that stuff in here. So we're either going to mock it up before the motor and trans go back in, or we have to mock it up after it comes back out, which either one, you know, no big deal. But, you know, it's just something I gotta think about. The more that I think about it now while I'm talking about it, like it's probably better to get it mocked up before we put the motor and trans in, because once the motor and trans is in and the shifter thing is in, then you know we're gonna start making floor pans and start getting those put in place, and before I know it, the floor is gonna be back in it, and I'm not gonna be done working up there. So another thing that we got to do, he was over here last week and said that he wants the wipers shaved, so we're gonna run no wipers on it. So we got to weld up those 2 holes, and I got to pull out all the wiper stuff. So that's something else that we're gonna do as well. So yeah, that's where we're headed. Some patches, make our little electronic gizmo work, get the motor and trans back in. I have this that we marked out. I told you in the last video that we marked this out before we shaved down that lip. So I'm just gonna check it and see. Correctly, I held this up here and Colleen marked it from the inside. So it definitely got larger. I remarked it. You can definitely see that, you know, it definitely grew in size. So I'm gonna take this over to the shear and we're gonna shear off as much of it as we can. All right, now we'll grind this up a little bit and we'll check it out. See if it fits. If it fits, I think we'll tack it in place, and then we'll move on with the next piece. So before we tack it in place, I gotta go inside and grind and clean up, possibly sandblast the inside where this is going to get welded up. They had a plate over it that may have been factory. It was screwed in place over the top of this hole. This hole, I believe, was for right-hand steering. So from the factory, they screwed this plate over it, and there's a good surface rust area around where we're going to be welding. So I need to go clean that up. Okay, compressor's on. What we can do about cleaning this up. Hopefully I'll just clean up nicely with the grinder. It's time for a new fitting on my airline here. So now I think we're gonna work on the center piece here. Let's see, I cut that out. This is what we cut out of there. I'm gonna clean up the edges a little bit on it so that we can get a good tracing. And we'll lay this on a piece of metal and we'll trace it out. And I think I might have to cut a piece of metal as well. So I got cut out of a fresh piece of metal, which I kind of figured. So I'm just going to kind of hold this up over there and get it traced out. We'll just cut it off the sheet. I just got a rough estimate of it. It's getting a little warm in here, and I have my sweatshirt on because I don't like welding and grinding and cutting and everything open-armed. Take this off, this little bit off with the shear, and then we're gonna kind of mark where it needs to be bent. We're just gonna bend it over this bar so it's a soft bend. I left a little extra down here on the bottom. I think we're gonna bend it up using the brake. We may take a little off of it because I don't need, you know, an 1.5 inches of a lip. I'm thinking maybe just like a 1/2 inch or so of a lip bent up. So when I go to put the trans tunnel down, it has a lip to sit on. We can drill some holes in the trans tunnel and spot weld that in. Now, that is only if we're sticking with the stock trans tunnel, which we don't know yet because the shifter's not here yet. It actually got delayed or back ordered, whatever, to the 14th. So I got a couple weeks before it's supposed to be here. It was supposed to be here yesterday. So we don't know quite what's going on with the trans tunnel yet. I'm thinking that we're still gonna be able to fit in everything underneath the stock floor, but I don't really know for sure. So yeah, unfortunately we're gonna have to just wait on the floor at the moment. What we're gonna end up doing is we're, like I said, I'm gonna get these couple of patches done that are left on the firewall. Then I think we'll hook up the electronic linear actuator for the vent and make sure that works. If that works, we can finalize all that and get all that welded in. We can also finalize all the brake stuff and get that all welded up solid. And if it's still not here by then, you know, we may jump back to the one fender. There's a couple things that I got to weld up on the one fender and grind down. There's a couple more things where the fender actually mounts that needs to be taken care of. We got to put the motor in and do all the wiring. So there's plenty of stuff to do, but we need to you know, we need to keep ourselves occupied while we're waiting for this shifter. So hopefully this bend will work out. From one side to the other, the bend is in a different spot, so this bend is actually going to be on an angle in the floor. You can see this side's way higher than this side, so but that's just the way it is. I think that's looking okay. All right, let's go check this in the vehicle. I'm snagged. Did I do a good enough job that it's going to fit first try? We're pretty darn close. We're pretty darn close. Definitely see this one corner up here needs to be taken down some. I think we're darn cheating close. This is going to be one of those pieces that we just kind of tack and manipulate as we go. Alright, I think I'm going to trim that little bit off of the bottom here. We're going to put the fold in it to bend up for the trans tunnel to sit on and spot weld to. Maybe. Like I said, we're not really sure where the floor is going to sit quite yet, but so hopefully that'll give us something that we can just spot weld along that edge, and then we'll seam seal the bottom. You know, worst case, we cut that off and we just weld the trans tunnel straight to it and grind it down, flush mounted. Everything will be good to go. There. I don't know how I did that. For somehow I missed I don't know what that mark was there for, but it's that upper mark. I bent it on the wrong mark. I'm gonna straighten this mark back out, and we're gonna move it because that was not right. See if I can catch what's going on. You guys just shut off. And I just put a brand new battery in, you guys, and I didn't know what was going on. I hit the button and you guys are recording again, but I gotta see if next time it shuts off, if I can catch what the screen is saying. We're much better now. I think I'm gonna try and see if we can get it tacked in place. Alright, well, it's checked in place. A couple of gaps that I'm not really happy about. So I think it looks like it can go up a little bit. Which will close up this gap at the top. I gotta grind down this corner to get it to go up farther. That'll close up the gap at the top. And it'll bring our lip up even with our cut. And then I think it'll be okay. I mean, I'm not scared to weld gaps. But I did not come prepared to cut this guy back out. So I gotta crawl back out from underneath here. Like I said before, it's getting protected from both sides, so I'm not really super worried about pinholes. Pinholes are bad when you can't protect the other side of it. But since I'm here and I can get to them, I might as well hit them. Alright, I'm gonna get the cutoff wheel, see if we can make this fit a little better. 'Cause I'm not happy with the fitment at the moment. This is where it would be nice to have a helper out here, so we can just say, hey, give me this. Tell you what though, it does look much better out here. Even with that little bit of gappage, it looks nice out there. Alright, I got this cleaned up, and we're going to try and see if we can make this fit a little bit better. Like I said, I don't mind welding up a gap, but a couple of those gaps were a little bigger than I like. So if we can just split the difference, get those gaps a little more consistent. Ow, ow, ow. Oh, I hate working underneath stuff. It sucks. I have that welding blanket that I would normally throw over me, but freaking thing sheds fiberglass like you wouldn't believe, and freaking makes me itchy for days on end. Out of welding wire. So close. Again, I need a helper. Change that welding wire. Oh, yeah. Alright, I'll be back. Try to get some welding wire. The new welding wire in and put a new tip in and cleaned up the, I don't know which one to call that, the housing, what it's called. The tip, I cleaned the tip and put a new tip in. So we got those 3 patches in. Jake brake. So we got those 3 patches in. I got, you know, these couple of holes that I got to weld up where the gas pedal was mounted. That is, we'll just stick my copper backer there and weld those up. And then we have this one over here, which was the it was the little floor button for the bright lights, for the headlights, and I had made this plug to go in there. The only problem is that I can't get to it to grind it down after it's welded. The body mount is right there, and the body mount has this opening in it that you can see through and you can see it. So if I weld it up from the inside, I'm not going to be able to grind it on the outside. I can't get to it. There's no way, not without removing the body mount, and I'm not doing that. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a plug again that's bigger than the hole, and we're just going to set it over the top of the hole here, and we'll put a tack on each side, and it can get seam sealed from the inside, and then on the outside all you see is a perfect circle. It'll be backed, it'll be plugged up, you won't be able to see through the hole, but you know, you'll still see that circle there. But at least the circle, because it's a perfect stamped circle in there, it's not like somebody hacked a hole in it like they did with the rest of the firewall. Like, it's a factory piece, so it's a perfectly stamped hole. It'll look nice and clean. And then I had talked about in previous videos the bolt holes. I have these little button head things that were all over this firewall that I pulled out and we welded up the holes. I'm just going to stick the button head thing in there so that the hole's gone. So you'll see it as we do it. But I think I'm gonna take a break for lunch. I just took my watch off over there, but I think I'm way past lunch, and my tumbly is a grumbly. So, but you know, I'm happy with what we got done. You know, there's a couple gaps on this guy up here that could have been a little bit better, but it's weldable. By the time I'm done, you'll never know. So, you know, worst case scenario, I'll weld it from the inside, then we'll go to the outside and we'll, you know, weld up anything that I feel that I'm uncomfortable about from the outside, and then we'll grind it all up. So, and that's worst case scenario. You know, all depends on how it looks on the outside. You know, it's gonna get some Marglass put over it and a little bit of filler. You know, we're smoothing everything out, so I think we'll be okay. Every once in a while I look through here and I just see like a little dot of light showing through. So I go through and I hit it if I see it. So, but anyways, we'll come back out later to continue welding this up. Like I said, we'll get that situated over there, and we'll weld the rest of this up. And hopefully, you know, we'll start grinding or getting it grinded down or start cleaning it up. I am going to run over a little bit of this inside of this firewall, whatever we can get to. We'll hit it. Like I said, it's getting all. I'm gonna pull this heater box out, and we're bed lining in here, and I'm gonna shoot up inside underneath this dash as far as I can. You know, it'll help with sound deadening and help with, you know, looks and whatnot. Once this thing's all put together, the only one that's going to be looking up under the dash is either me or the owner. So I highly doubt anybody else is going to be looking up under the dash. If for some odd reason we're at a car show and a judge looks up underneath there, it'll look decent. So now we're back out here, and I'd like to start getting this welded up. So let's work on. I'm gonna work on this patch first. Some air hooked up. Okay, we're just gonna weld and cool and weld and cool and weld and cool. think I'm gonna come over here. We're gonna get this wrapped up, and then we will come back in for some grinding. Okay, so I got this stuff prepped. So we got these few holes that are left right here. Those were from the bright light switch. And eventually, you know, I don't think we're gonna do it while I have the vehicle. I mean, you never know, but he is talking about putting like an I Did It steering column in here, which will have the bright lights on the steering column, so we don't need those holes down there anymore. Now, unfortunately, I've said this before in other videos, but just, you know, for those of you who maybe haven't watched those videos, those holes right there are inside the body mount. So it's darn near impossible for me to get in there and grind those down and body work them out. I mean, you can see they're right inside there. So what I'm gonna do is I cut out a perfect circle. We're just gonna put this circle over the top in here and put a couple of tacks in there. Then that way, on the outside, when you're looking inside that body mount, you know, yes, you'll see a circle, but you won't be able to see through it. It'll have this as a backer. So, and then as far as the little holes, like the mounting holes where it was bolted in, there are 3 of them down there. So what I have here is these are like little metal buttons, like almost like the button on your jacket. It's almost exactly what they are. These are actually a factory item that I removed from the firewall and we welded the holes up. So this was something that they stuck in from the factory, I believe, to plug up holes that weren't being used. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna stick it in from the outside and we're gonna weld it. And then I'll cut these little you know, holder guys off. So from the outside, all you'll see is this little button. I threw them in the blast cabinet, sandblasted them up so they're all nice and clean. And then we'll weld them from the inside. Like I said, the inside we'll get it all grinded down and it's getting bed lined. So you won't see any of this stuff from the inside. And he is talking, I mean, we'll see how nice the bed liner comes out, but they make rubber mats for this. And he has talked about putting the factory rubber mat back in here so that it looks more factory. Either way, it'll be bed lined underneath, so if you pull the rubber lining back, you're not really noticing all our welds or repairs or patches and everything that we did on the inside as well. So, but that's my plan for those holes. We're gonna just put a cover over the one, and we're gonna put these buttons in the little mounting holes and weld them in. Then that way, if you look from inside that body mount area, it is nice and clean looking. You know, well, it'll get painted in there as best as we can, and it'll look nice. So that's the plan. That's what we're gonna do right now. So stay tuned. I think I gotta go get Colleen, and I'm just gonna have her hold with the screwdriver from the outside, just so when I'm going to weld these, they're not moving. So let's go get her set up in here with the screwdriver, and we'll be back. Okay, so we got those welded in, got the circle welded in, got those buttons welded in. Now I know it looks like those buttons could probably be welded in a little better. Maybe I'll do that when I come out a little bit later. It's almost lunchtime, so, well, it is, it's past lunchtime. So, so the reason, like right now, the reason that I welded it the way that I welded it, was it has those little spring things that stick out from the back. You know, when I pushed it through the front, on the inside, there was those little spring things. I welded to those spring things. I didn't actually weld to the button because I don't want to ruin the head of the button that's sticking out here. If I hit it with the welder, then, you know, you're gonna end up with, you know, something like that protruding out the head of the button, and I don't want that. I want those buttons to look nice and clean. So I think everything looks good. I'm happy with it. You know, I think we should be good on the inside. So because that's not getting welded solid right there, we'll put some seam sealer around it before we do the bed liner in there. So it'll all get seam sealed. You know, I'll make sure I pack some seam sealer inside the back of those button heads, just so everything's good and sealed back there. And with it being open, if I weld them closed, then I can't do that. So, you know, I think just leave them open and just pack them full of seam sealer. It'll help protect it. So, but yeah, that's it. So that was the last couple things there on the firewall. I do have to, you know, I'm not really considering this the firewall. I mean, it is, but it isn't. But there's like a crack here, and there's this crack around here. I'm gonna probably weld those up a little later on this evening. So, and I did see up in this corner, here, there is a small crack right there. So I'm probably gonna weld him up. And then it's just time to, you know, let's grind up everything that we welded. You know, these are the little spot welds that I could see pinholes through, so we gotta grind those up again, and then we'll grind up our patches that we put in, inside and out. And then we're ready to start on the floor at that point. I'm still waiting on the shifter. The shifter the delivery date got pushed to the 14th. We were supposed to have it like a week ago. So now it got pushed to the 14th, which is in a couple of days. Hopefully it'll show up. So I'm waiting on the shifter so that we could do the floor. But over the next couple days, like I said, we're gonna get this all grinded up, cleaned up. I'm gonna remove all the windshield wiper stuff, and we'll probably weld up those holes. And then, like I said, we got the electric, I forget what it's called, but anyways, it's the electric ram that's gonna open this vent guy. So we have him, so I need to get him mocked up and make sure that everything's gonna work here. So I went to the store and I totally forgot to pick up nylon nuts. Need to get some nylon nuts for that. So, but yeah, so I'm hoping to maybe get all this stuff wrapped up before the shifter gets here. Because then once the shifter gets here, we can start building the floor and get that all done. You know, that'll probably take a week or so to get the floor all done. And then once the floor is all done, we got a few things that we got to wrap up on the fenders. I have the hood. We need to do the hood. I haven't done anything with the hood yet. But both sides of these corners down here are rotting out. You can see some pinholes in there. So we need to address both corners of the hood. Because this came off of the station wagon, the holes are in a different place than the ones that actually say, I think the ones for the truck say Jeep Willys. So we got to weld up those holes, and then we got to drill the new holes for The new emblems will go on. But before we even get to that, we got to put that motor back in. We got to run all the wiring for it. And then the motor's got to come back out. That'll get done before we address the couple of fender issues and the hood. Well, not fender issues, just the things that haven't been finished yet on the fender. But yeah, we're getting there. We're getting there. So once we get all this grinded up on the firewall, we're gonna put the motor back in. Maybe. I don't know. Just winging it over here. All right. I'll see you guys a little later on this evening. Like I said, it's lunchtime, so I'm out. All right, so we're back out here. I'm gonna grind up this firewall on the outside here. You guys have already seen this once, but it should be pretty quick. I went through, I welded up a couple of spots that I felt needed it. Like up here and up here. It was like the metal wasn't lined up perfectly straight. So when I welded it, it protruded on one side but not the other. I don't know, but you can see that there was a nice straight line there, and I just welded them up so that we don't have any problems in the filler. And then I welded up those cracks that were on the other side that I had mentioned earlier. You can see a couple of things I welded up here where there was some cracks, and then I also welded up a bowl hole that was down here, and this bowl hole, stupid thing, I need to fix that. This bowl hole down here, I actually added it into the new piece. It's got a nut welded behind it, and this bowl hole down here, like, you can't reach it from the top, and you can't reach it from the bottom. I mean you can, but like it's just super difficult to get to. So I eliminated it on that side because it was just easier to get rid of it than it was to try and put the bolt in. And you know, you got 3 bolts down here, and then you got 4 along the bottom. Like, I don't think one bowl hole missing is gonna, you know, hurt anything. So I got rid of it on that side, and I would just weld it up on this side so it matches. Alright, so that's it as far as getting everything welded up and ground down on the firewall, minus what we'll have to do once the floor gets put in place. So I think that's good. I think we can move back to the inside and grind down the inside. I'm not gonna go crazy like I did on the outside, grinding everything down. For one, I want to keep the strength of the welds, and for two, it's getting the bed liner in there, so we don't need to go crazy, but I do want to clean it up a little bit. So I think that's next. And then we got like little odds and ends up here. Like I want to make some new plates that sit in here in the body mount and kind of sandwich everything together. I've said before that there's a little bit of rust and rot around that, but for me to rebuild those, like I would have to cut out the whole body mount and rebuild everything, and we're not about to do that. The owner wouldn't want to do that either, so we're just going to make a plate to go in there, an 1/8 inch plate, and it'll all get sandwiched in there. It'll be good, it'll be strong. Once we get it in there, maybe we'll put some welds in there so that it stays in place and becomes part of the truck. We can seam seal around it or whatever, and we'll be good to go. So I'm not gonna make you watch me grind the inside. You guys watch me grind the outside. Inside's no different. It's just more of a cramped area, so I'll do that on my own off camera. And probably the next thing that we'll fire up the camera for is either going to be getting rid of the windshield wipers or motorizing that flippy Madoo Bob thing up top, the air vent, the poor man's AC. I do want to do those two things before we put the motor back in, because it's easier to sit down on the ground and work up underneath the dashboard. Once the motor's in there, I'm not going to be able to do that. So we need to get those two things done before the motor goes in. But I'll see you guys when we do that. That'll probably be tomorrow. I am going to grind up the inside of the firewall real quick tonight. Spend a little time on that, get that cleaned up. But I think tomorrow's project is the vent or the windshield wipers or both. So who knows? I would like in the next few days to have the motor back in so that we can figure out where the wiring goes, and then it's in for me to figure out the whole gear shifter situation. So see you guys tomorrow. I'm out.